Hey, welcome to American Reversion. I'm Steve Smith. How are you all today? Well, we have something interesting to talk about today. It seems that Lindsey Graham says that if Trump is prosecuted or charged, and it's not the same thing, I forget if he said charged or prosecuted, we'll get to that in a second, that there's going to be riots in the streets. I have my thoughts about that. We'll talk about that. And the real support or non-support among conservatives of President Trump, and I have some questions about that too. I want to talk about that. By the way, welcome to everybody. Welcome to all the new people here, both here on YouTube and here on Patreon. For those of you watching on Patreon, the Patreon channel has been growing so much, and I know that's because of those of you who want to support the channel, and for that I thank you. If you're not with us on Patreon, and I do put extra stuff over there, all the stuff that's on YouTube, plus other stuff, I invite you to come over. It's a great way to support the channel, and that's the main reason for it. And there's several different levels that you can do it at, and whatever you want to, whatever you're comfortable with, whatever you feel led to do, we certainly appreciate that. And the way to do that is there are links down below in the information section, and a pinned comment that has links to let you know how to do that. And we also are sponsored, regardless of what kind of strange commercials. Although they're putting better commercials on my channels, I know that. Whatever you may hear, all of my videos are sponsored by the Stonemont series, my books. If you haven't read them, they're not just about preparedness and survival. They're also about community and family and foundational principles. And as we get into the later books, it's about talking about what is the proper form and function of government, and you'll find a lot of history back in here, and a lot of discussions about it, and I think you'll be interested in. So before we get into the rioting and such, the potential violence that may accompany the upcoming election season, let's start with probably the most important story of the day, and that is the nutritional value of cockroach milk. You may say, Steve, have you gone crazy? No. You know, they want us to start eating insects, right? Because. Well, here's an interesting story. Cockroach milk, it says, is touted by scientists as over 3 times more nutritious than cow's milk. Can you all believe that? Well, scientists say it, right? Let's read this just a little bit. It says, the push to normalize insect, and don't worry, we're going to get around to Lindsey Graham and rioting and Trump and things like that in a minute. The push to normalize insect consumption has been going on for years, with scientists promoting cockroach milk that is allegedly more nutritious than its bovine counterpart. That means cows. Back in 2016, a team of scientists from the Institute of Stem Cell Biology and Regenerative Medicine, INSTEM, in India sequenced a protein crystal found in the midgut of the Pacific beetle cockroach, or as most of you know it, the Diploptera punctata. Half of you said, I understand. The crystal found in the milk secreted by the insect to feed its young was over 3 times more nutritious than cow's milk. Like so much in science, you have to wonder, was this an accident that they discovered this, or did they go looking for it, and why on earth did they go looking for it, right? But for whatever reason, they found it. According to the INSTEM researchers, this crystal found in the D. punctata could be the key to feeding the population in the future. That's how it affects you, that's right. Go down and have your daily cockroach milk cocktail. A single protein crystal contains more than thrice, that means 3 times, thrice for those who want to talk fancy, 3 times the amount of energy found in an equivalent amount of buffalo milk. So I guess, I don't know, they said bovine, so apparently both cow and buffalo milk. So, Now, you imagine the situation, you're in, okay, go milk the buffalo and then go milk the cow. Now go milk the cockroach. According to, seeing that obtaining the crystal from the insects is not a feasible endeavor. Couldn't you just imagine the guy out there on his little bitty stool, trying to keep that cockroach from kicking him and knocking over the pail while he was milking it? It's not a feasible endeavor. The scientists decided to sequence the genes responsible for producing the milk protein crystals, which they successfully did. Thank goodness they did. Now they're hoping to obtain yeast that will enable them to produce the milk protein crystal in much larger quantities. Well, I wonder where they're going to find the yeast. Okay, makes you wonder, doesn't it? Okay, there's more to this for those of you with inquiring minds. And then we have one down here. It says, the introduction of cockroach milk as a more nutritious protein source than the cattle bodes well with the globalist World Economic Forum's plan to eliminate cattle farming, what we used to call ranching, in the name of climate change alleviation. Is that the new term for it? Climate change alleviation. Okay, I'll put this link. I'll put the link to this article because I know you're all going to want to read it and share it. Over on the Patreon. That's another reason, if it's a good reason to be on Patreon, because I put the links for the stories that I talk about over there. Okay, now let's get to Lindsey Graham, the so-called Republican senator, so-called Republican senator from South Carolina. And I said I made mention of this over on the integrative preparedness video that I did earlier today. Why don't you, I love South Carolina. A big branch of my family's from South Carolina. Got there in the 1600s and left in the 1860s after that happened. Came to Missouri, but everybody that I ever met from South Carolina I liked. Why don't you all elect yourselves a conservative down there, okay? So it says here that Lindsey Graham, and this is from the Washington Examiner, by the way. Lindsey Graham predicts riots if Trump is prosecuted over classified documents. Senator Lindsey Graham said there will be riots in the streets if former President Donald Trump faces charges over his handling of documents. He made the explosive prediction during an appearance on Fox News Sunday night in America in an interview with the host and former Rep. Trey Gowdy. Trey Gowdy, I used to like him, remember all the promises that he made, and we were all so hopeful that he was going to drive that investigation through and get something done, and then what happened? He disappeared and went to Fox. Well, plus his hairstyle kept changing. Do you remember that? So he's arguing that there is no law and a double standard when it comes to Trump. Well, that's true. I agree with Lindsey. Lindsey's like that broken clock. He's right a couple times a day. And compared the situation to the controversy over Hillary Clinton's use of a personal email server while serving as Secretary of State. Of course. Let's see if he says anything over... okay, he's just saying there's riots in the streets. I'll go down. I'm sure that Lindsey, being Lindsey, and being a politician, he'll just repeat himself over and over and over again, and then he might qualify or quantify certain things. I haven't read the whole thing, because this leads us to really what I want to talk about, and that's, are there going to be riots in the street? Over at the Integrative Preparedness, I did one on preparing for riots, because I definitely think that there could be. Let me address this second story, because it kind of comes into the whole formula as I talk about this, and that is Republicans, once outraged by the Mar-a-Lago search, have become quieter as details emerge. Is that true? And what details have emerged that have caused that? I mean, real details, not headlines, not talking heads saying things, not secondhand information, but actual facts. What have come out? Well, now that's interesting because we're talking about riots in the street and then the softening of support for President Trump. Riots in the streets. Very possibly. Very possibly. Those of you who are old enough to remember the 1968 riots and the Democrat convention in Chicago, and that was also, of course, the riots. Bobby Kennedy was assassinated, Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, Vietnam, all sorts of things. Dope smoking and hippies and burning draft cards and stuff like that. It was all came together, and then the Weathermen and Bill Ayers, right? And the Weather Underground and SDS, Students for a Democratic Society. For you younger people, these may be new terms for you you're not familiar with, but the older dogs know what I'm talking about. You newer ones, look into it. Well, they went up and they rioted, and what they did was they thought that by doing that, they would be able to force their will on the Democrat Party. Well, it kind of bit them in the butt, because what happened was that year Richard Nixon won the election because people were sick of this stuff, and they voted Nixon in to take care of this and shut down the lawlessness. But that was a different country at a different time. What we have now is that I think there very well may be riots, but it's not going to be by who Lindsay thinks that it's going to be. Because the problem with conservatives, and that's why I don't consider myself a conservative. For all you other reversionists out there, not revisionists, right? We don't revise history. We want to revert to it. For you other reversionists who want to take things back to the way things used to be and ought to be, like me, we know that conservatives don't stand solid behind their people. Okay. Democrats, liberals, they do. They are lockstep. And as I put this, somebody left a great comment over on the integrative preparedness one. Let me see if I can bring it up here. Well, I'll tell you what, I won't bother, but it was a great one. Essentially, it was that the left will always stay solid behind their people. The right won't. The conservatives won't. They'll find one little thing to separate over, and they will. They are a group of people who claim to be solid in their beliefs, but they are looking for an argument with their own people. Simple as that. Well, I won't support him because of this. And it starts with, all those people that voted for Trump or before how many people could you find that stood right up, except, who weren't at a rally? How many people could you find at your work location and your circle of friends that would just come right out and say, I'm for Trump. I'm for Trump, because he is America first. And then right out now, I know that there's people banging on their keyboards. Steve, but he's this and he's that, and he was divorced twice, and he took a loan from his dad, which he did, or his dad gave him a lot of money, which isn't true. So a lot of people don't know what the truth of these things is. Or he did this, or I don't know. He tweets mean things. That's what everybody was. Their support was soft. It was soft. They could barely make themselves vote for him over Biden. I mean, what in the world does that say? The choice was clear, as it continues to be clear. I should have worn my new Trump cap. I just got a new Trump cap. And I will be wearing it because I show the colors sometimes. So that's what the conservatives will never stand up for their people. If there's anything that they can find that they can argue with each other about, they would rather argue with each other than with the other side. That's why this country is in the shape that it's in. Don't blame the enemy who's working for their side. Blame the people who are supposed to be on our side, but instead of helping to row the boat, they're punching holes in it. Okay? Or they're not rowing. They're not rowing. Well, I'd row, but I'm not sure exactly this boat. I don't like the color of this boat. Okay. So the support is dampening, they say. The support is lowering. Now, is that true or is it not? Who knows? I mean, it's the media. So essentially, it's, you can pretty much question whether it's true or not. I wouldn't doubt it, because as things come up, as things are reported by the media, a lot of these softies believe it, and they'll go, "Oh yeah, well I never was fully behind Trump. I mean, I always had questions about him, right? Always had questions about him." Excuse me just a minute. Okay, I figured I'd go ahead and finish it out like this. Yes. So I make no bones about the fact that I support Trump. You know what? I don't know if he did anything wrong or not, but I will guarantee you that he didn't do anything worse than a couple of other crime families have done who has held top spots, right? So if you don't support him and you don't even know what has come out yet, you don't know what's come out yet. And if you are still softening in your support simply because of what a media who you know and have admitted lies all the time, you're allowing that to affect you concerning him, you don't know the facts. But the media, who you hate, is saying things, so you believe it because, well, see, that's why I never really, I didn't support Trump 100%. Well, I'll tell you what, if you don't support him, you are supporting his opponent. So go on. I'll give you a moment. Go ahead and put this on pause. Go put on your Biden cap. And then you can sit there and wear your Biden cap while you watch me with my cap. Okay? It's probably softening. That's the problem. So, but here's the thing. The thing about what the little guy from South Carolina said. I know he's a colonel, right, in the reserve or something like that. So he says that there's going to be riots in the streets. Yeah, there might be. It won't be from the right. It won't be from conservatives. It certainly won't be from Lindsey. Okay. He'll stand up, and because he knows, his constituency is fairly conservative. He keeps getting reelected. Hey, isn't there somebody down who's a reversionist who will run against that idiot? So he'll make some speeches to play to his audience. This will not stand. This we can't. Blah, 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 blah. Just like Gowdy. So you know who's going to be doing the rioting? It's going to be the left. Because as more and more comes out that weakens ostensibly weakens Trump and his support. See, they don't just riot when things don't go their way. They riot when things do go their way. They are celebratory rioters. And it will happen. And you'd better be ready for it. And if you want to know how to get ready for it, go watch my integrative preparedness video. That's more about this, a little bit about this. It's about being prepared and what to keep in mind. But that's going to be the rioters. And when they start getting out, and it does not matter what comes out in this Mar-a-Lago, because the media is going to spin it their way, and we know how it's going to spin it, and that includes Fox News, with the perhaps exception of Tucker. We will see. So as this comes out, see, I told you, this is how they're trying to win the election. We knew there was going to be something. Do you remember, those of you who have been with me for a while, do you remember 6 months ago when I said, when everybody was saying, oh, it's a shoo-in, there's no way, there is going to be a red tsunami. It's not going to be a wave, it's going to be a tsunami. There's no way any Democrats can possibly be reelected. Do you remember that? Do you remember when I said don't be so sure? Now, this isn't a presidential year, but it's an off year where the out party who's out should be making great gains back. May not happen because they're getting better. The other side is getting better. And I reminded you that after Clinton's first term, nobody in the world thought that he could possibly be reelected. Nobody. Because he was such a failure. But the media, understanding how stupid the American electorate is, the American voter, spun that thing up and he got reelected because of his, I just... Do you remember that nobody thought that Obama could possibly be reelected because of the division he had caused in this country? Remember how many people he did a lot of damage. Even the people who voted for him to show that they weren't racist. This will show the world I don't like him, but this will show the world that we're not racist because I care more about what somebody in Luxembourg thinks of me than I do voting out of conscience for my country. Even they didn't think, and even they were disappointed and said, there's no way he's good. Yeah, he sure did. He sure did. And do you know what? You can say media this and media that and cheating this and cheating that, but you know what is at the core of this? That our side is weak. Our side will not stand up for what is right. It's just the lesser of two evils, Steve. Well, okay. Then you're saying you want the greater of two evils? Is that what you're saying? Because that's what you're voting for. Or if you're not actively voting because you're one of those who says, well, I'm a realist, I'm a cynist, I'm out of the system. If you don't, are you familiar with the sayings that silence always helps the oppressor, never the oppressed? Are you familiar with Edmund Burke's great saying that all that is necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing? Well, you keep doing your nothing and evil will triumph. But I'd still be voting for the lesser of two evils. Well, think about that. Greater, lesser. And you don't know that he's evil anyway. You've got your opinion that you learned from, whatever you heard from somebody. Well, because, if I could ask a lot of people out there, I know I keep saying you. I don't mean you all because you all are great. I'm trying to speak to that one person who wandered by. I'm speaking to so many people that I run into, and you do too. What did Trump do that was wrong? Well, I don't know, but he's just done a lot of things that are wrong and bad and all sorts of horrible. And he was divorced and he's mean on his tweets and he's crazy and he's this and he's that and he's a millionaire and he's a billionaire and he went bankrupt, which he didn't. Have you ever looked into these claims? Have you ever actually looked into these claims? I guess what I've made this is one, since I keep saying you. And I don't mean you. I guess this is one that is a good one for you to send to people that you want to tick off and say, hey, what? Look at this guy. And I am going to ask that, by the way. Please share this. Please share this video. Put it around. Let them spur their hate on me. Because they're going to anyway. Their hate is going to be spilling out more and more and more through this whole season. And we can't control that. We can't control the hate that they spill. They're made of hate. They are a mixture of ignorance and hate. And when you mix ignorant and hate, what do you come up with? I don't know. I didn't think about that, but it ain't good. One of you come up with a name for it, all right? Yeah, so things are going to be bad. You got to be ready for it. But you know what? Now is the time to stand up, for crying out loud. Don't soften in your support of somebody who stood up and risked everything in his life for the country. How much are you willing to stand up for? Okay, I don't know. So you like my new cap? I do. I like it because it says, "Take America back." Take America back. That's a horrible thing to say. Not to me. Take it back. Because it's been taken from us. The America as it was supposed to be, as it was designed to be, and as it used to be, has been taken from us by a bunch of little commitards. Because of the weakness of the support on our side. Okay, I think I'm running out of time here, so I'd better get out. Listen, you know that what I've said is right. You know that it's time to stand up. you know that it's time to share this with everybody you can possibly think of, and stop backing down when somebody says, well, I don't know about that. You know what? They're right. They don't know. Educate them, but at least don't go along with them. Okay? Look, America needs help. America needs a reversion. It needs you to be a part of it. Time to get at it. Don't get soft. Okay? I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.